Hi all. Recently on our channel there was a video for Yulia. She is a master painter, the city of Moscow, and now the second video is for her for the corridor. In the first video, we applied marmoro for the kitchen, because it is perfectly smooth, and more textured plaster can be used in the corridor. We already had this application option on the channel, but we will shoot it now in more detail. We will try as much as possible. For decorative textured plaster, an ideal surface is not required. It is necessary to cleanly remove the wallpaper to the smallest particles. Prime the surface. Even if your walls are concrete, but there are no fallen pieces of chipped plastered, some large cracks, then, in principle, you can immediately apply quartz grout. This is a quartz primer. It is like paint with coarse sand. It creates a uniform color and roughness. We are now applying to the old sample, and for Yulia it will be the walls. I think that they are prepared. We will look forward to her video on application, the process of work. You can apply quartz primer in one layer. If the walls are white, then one layer is enough, and if your walls are really concrete, then 2 layers of quartz primer will save you completely. The wall will become white pretty and ready for further application. Quartz primer is applied with a roller, just like paint. The corners are covered with a brush, and the entire plane with a roller. It dries for about 4 hours, depending on the humidity of the air. It can be humid and then it dries longer. How can we understand that it has dried up? Firstly, the color will even out, it will be uniform, and secondly, when you touch it with your hand, you feel that it is not damp and not cold. If you touch it with your hand and feel cold, then it is not yet dry. That way you can tell if it's dry or not. We will cover now, leave for 3 to 4 hours and continue application. A fairly beautiful, fairly affordable sample for do-it-yourself application as well. If you want to try to apply plaster with your own hands, this video is for you. Let's continue the application. The quartz soil is completely dry. See how it looks? Such a rough surface, small grains of sand. This is just what we need. Now we will cover it with a golden azure, brightly saturated gold, like this. Azure can be diluted with varnish. It will not even lose its luster. It will be more profitable in terms of cost. You need 2 cans of azure. For example, for your area, azure costs 1,500 rubles per kilogram, and varnish 750 rubles per kilogram, so as a cheaper option, you can take 1 can instead of 2 cans of azure and plus a can of varnish. It will be more profitable. We will now cover it with a golden azure, and it has such a beautiful color. Enamel lays down in an even golden layer, and azure is a translucent glazing composition. It can be used on top of decorative plaster, as well as inside the texture. So that it shines golden from the recesses. Roll out evenly with a roller and leave to dry again. Next, we will apply the plaster itself directly. If you paint and you still have stripes from the roller, for example, you can apply it on decorative plaster. With such movements crosswise on decorative plaster, it will be more beautiful than stripes. This does not apply to just painting walls. This method is not suitable for simply painting walls, but it is quite suitable for decorative plaster. We leave to dry. The azure has dried up in a slightly golden, very pleasant and obtrusive background. It should turn out very beautifully. Now we will apply decorative plaster. You can make loft plaster or Alexandria plaster, everything according to your capabilities and depending on what volume you have. For example, Alexandria is only sold in buckets, and loft is from 1 kilogram, that is, you need to look at what will be more profitable for you. Can be applied with a trowel or with a sponge. We tamp the plaster with islands. The islands can be large or small, depending on the desired effect. It could be like Moroccan plaster, or it could be like a map of the world. That's the meaning. We print on the wall, randomly turning the hand in different directions with versatile movements. A very profitable consumption of plaster, in this case, 600 to 700 grams per square meter is spent, and sometimes even 500 grams, depending on which islands. You must understand, the larger the island, the higher the plaster consumption will be. I also want to gloss the surface to make it shine. Let's see what we get. I heard such an interesting phrase. Especially for beginner decorators, if your decorative plaster turns out ugly, it means that you have not yet applied the last layer. That's such a cool phrase. I really liked it. It means you haven't applied the last layer yet, 100%, so that plaster is not wallpaper. We will smooth it out after a while. Now I will press it a little bit to understand whether it is necessary to add plaster. I see what is needed. Look, now we are not putting pressure on the trowel, we just need to understand if we need to add. I see that some places need to be added, and a full-fledged compression will happen in 15 minutes. I'll add here, I'll add more here, it doesn't seem enough to me here. You can even add it like this, take a little bit of plaster on the trowel and add it like this. Let it be somewhere more, somewhere less. Enough. Let it dry for 15 minutes. And go back to it and try to make it beautiful. The plaster has dried up. Let's take a closer look at how it looks. It stopped shining. It became more matte. You see it is damp here, and here it is already more matte. And at this moment, when it is still damp enough, we press it with a trowel. Thereby making the top smooth. we get a clearer edge. Here you see how these are the cores, and here the edge becomes clear and beautiful. That's how we need to do it. We smooth the plaster half-baked. The inclination of the trowel can be adjusted for oneself. It is convenient for someone with a plane, and for someone a little at an angle. Find a comfortable way to hold the instrument. A clean trowel should be wiped all the time so that the plaster does not stick to the trowel. If you work with a dirty tool, you will have plaster sticking all the time. Wipe more often. We need a smooth surface, even and smooth. Smooth it out and let it dry completely. See how the plaster begins to shine after polishing with a trowel. This is not Venetian plaster, but nevertheless, look, it shines without wax. Not all plaster polishes like this. Medium cost and above can be polished. Ready option. Now we will show it to you in its final form. We hope you enjoyed our video. Write your comments. We respond to all comments. We will be glad to communicate. Subscribe to our channel. Like. Bye everyone.